Okay, I'm probably not going to get to the sign of Istanbul, Turkey, and the alignment with Jupiter in just yet. It'll probably be the next video. What I will do right now is continue on with this here. To the chief musician, a psalm of David, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard, and their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun. I want to talk a little about this line here. But let's start out with verse 1. I went through an example of that. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. And we did the hand thing. And I showed you all that in the second video. And how that looks like the hand of Yeshua, that matches the blood. And I think I did that in the second video. I don't even remember. I'm tired already. Okay, so then, and just for those who didn't see, you can go back to the other videos and see it, but it matches how Jesus would have been crucified, or Yeshua would have been crucified. So anyways, then I did a little bit about this, how the hand, if you turned it around, put the southern sky in the north, it would fit behind the garden tomb, and the hand would be about the scale of a real man's hand there. I don't know if you can see that, it's real small there, and there would be a man there. I blew it up so you can see it. And how Ron Wyatt did excavations in here. I would look up Ron Wyatt if I were you at some point. It's a real neat story. You can just YouTube Ron Wyatt. And so that's W-Y-A-T-T, I think it is. Ron Wyatt, W-Y-A-T-T, I think that's how you spell it. And I got into how he says he found the Ark of the Covenant down there, and then it was anointed by when Jesus was crucified. So you had Abraham, and then they put the then Zedekiah's caves, and then after the Babylonians came and took over Jerusalem, they hid the Ark here, and then later the Romans came without knowledge of the Ark being below where the crucifixion site was, crucified the Lord there, and he blood anointed the Ark, completing the blood covenant on the mercy seat. And so you have Abraham foreshadowing the crucifixion of Jesus on the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, so then I went into a little bit about the... I always forget the name of this thing. Anyways, that cloth and the Shroud of Turin and all that. So you can go into all that stuff. Moving on. Oh, here's a little diagram of what Ron Wyatt says he found. He found some cross holes that he says they were put in, that the cross would have been, and he found the big stone that would have been over the tomb. Here's some of his diagrams about that. He died a while back, so you can still get this information online. And he dug, these holes in there. And this is this was an image from 2006, but you can see how he came down the stairs. This is in the Garden Tomb area, and where he's at right there, if I back up, is... well, kind of. You can see it. It's down in this area. Those are the stairs are right here. Okay, so you can kind of look at that. And so he went down these stairs and he dug a hole right back in here. Okay. And he says he found the Ark down there and some other stuff, but God's not letting anyone see it yet. He tried to take pictures of it. They wouldn't come out. Some people went in there later, died. But before that, some other guy tried to go in there. He freaked out and left. He says he saw angels in there. It's an amazing story, and I think he's telling the truth. I know it sounds pretty incredible, but I think he is. But anyways, and that's because of Hexen possibly into Zedekiah's cave, and everything about it seems to make sense with how the altar of Abraham and Isaac is there, the cross, and then the Ark, just coming down that line there. And so here's where Abraham would have been above that before the escarpment before they took out the rocks for building the area. I shouldn't be getting into this too much because I already did it on the other video, but basically that's Zedekiah's caves. I have a feeling a lot of people aren't going to watch all the videos all the way through. but this is a quarry area in here behind the bus stop where the skull is, and then the Garden Tomb's back over here, and the cross area would have been over here, and this is how you spell Ron Wyatt's name. And in ancient times, you know, this was just where they got building materials for. So, all right. Oh, that rock. So, and the cave. And so, anyways, cross is probably down there, and it's the road to the city there. Okay, so let's move on. You can watch all that in the another video. So now I was talking about verse number 2, and that is, day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. When you consider when Jesus was born, or Yeshua was born, the wise men, there was a star, and then they went and packed up their camels and their caravan and came over to find the king of the Jews, and that really bothered Jerusalem and everything. And I don't think it was just 3 wise men. They brought 3 gifts. That's what the Bible says, they brought 3 gifts, but it doesn't say 3 wise men. And so it could have been a whole caravan of wise men. Who knows what it was. So that's evidence that somebody knew about signs in the heavens because they saw a star. Let's see what it was, verse 3. There's no speech nor language where the voice is not heard. You can find different cultures, all kinds of things about different signs in the sky. So there's no speech nor language where their signs aren't heard. In Job we have can thou bind the sweet influence of the Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? Well, it turns out Orion's belt, the stars are drifting apart, and in the Pleiades the stars are coming together. Can thou bind the sweet influence of the Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? How would Job know that? How would Job know that? That happens very, very slowly. Stars don't move quickly. They move very slowly. So anyways, and their line has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. I'm going to show you an alignment. Their line has gone out through all the world. Okay? And what it's going to have to do is with Jupiter, Hesi, and Spica. I'm not going to show it probably to you in this video, probably the next. What I'm going to talk about first is a little bit about Revelation 12 and that sign, as I was getting into in the first video about Daniel 12, Revelation 12. So sorry this takes so long. Do go to that little gear on the bottom right hand side of your corner of the YouTube video and speed me up and make me talk like a chipmunk so you can get through this quicker. Okay, so now their line has gone out through all the earth, and look at this. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun. So what that may indeed mean is that the zodiac is the tabernacle of the sun. As we go around the sun is set in front of a particular cluster of stars. Obviously, when we're in the constellation of Leo in July and August, we can't see the constellation of Leo because it's behind the sun. It will blind our eyes. But so that's possibly what is meant by the tabernacle for the sun. And so when we're looking at the sky for signs, just like Jesus said, there'll be great signs from the heavens, from the second video there, I think that's when I showed that. This isn't cuckoo astrology. Okay. Now let's look at another scripture here. This is Genesis 1:14. See, I got my Milky Way. I superimposed these pictures on here to try to make it look nice, but now it doesn't look very good. Maybe I can let's look at it this way. There you go, it looks a little better. I did this in the wrong format for the screen, but once I got started, I didn't fix it because I'd have to change all the slides. But anyways, and God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Okay, so the lights in the firmament of heaven divide the day and the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and it was so. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. So what are the lights in the sky? We have the sun, we have the moon, and we have the stars. And they're for signs and seasons. Now the word signs means pretty much signs. And the word signs is the word oath, or I don't know how to say that in Hebrew. But anyways, it means a flag, a beacon, a monument, omen, prodigy, evidence, mark, miracle, sign, or token. And not going to go through all this. This is it'll take forever. I mean, I got 500 slides. We're at 100 here, so I'm not going to go through it. We're going to skip a bunch. Okay, I don't need to look at the rainbow White House. Oh man, I get into some of the Mark of the Beast stuff and all this sort of things, and some real dark stuff in the New World Order. But I'm not going to get into that right now. So we'll just keep cruising. We could stop here. We all have seen ISIS do all the nice things they like to do to people. One thing about in Revelation 13:18, by the way, 18 is synonymous with 666, 6 plus 6 plus 6. All right, 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals 18. Or you could say, 3 times 6 equals 18. So that's kind of interesting. In verse 13:18, we have the 603 score and 6 show up. And if you look at this number in the Strongs, it's 65516. That's how you write it out in Greek. Let's look at the next slide. You'll be able to see it. 603 score and 6. Is that number there? And boom, there it is. So that is not a word in Greek. Okay, those are just 3 letters in Greek. But they do have a numerical value, and that numerical value is 666. So that's what the translators did. They just said, okay, well, we don't have a word here, so let's just make it the numerical value of this word and come up with 666. And if you look at this in Arabic, or if you look at a word in Arabic that looks like these 3 Greek letters, you get that. I don't know how to say it. I don't speak Arabic, but this is Greek, and this is Arabic. In Greek, that just means nothing. So they just say, well, we'll go with the numerical meaning. And that was 666, because letters in the alphabet have meanings in other cultures, not in English, but it'd be like A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. I mean, we can do that in codes in gematria, but in other languages they actually have numbers and meanings. Well, we have that a little bit. We have kind of like Roman numerals, like Super Bowl whatever. We'll have an X and a 1 and a V. Well, that would be 14, I think, or maybe 14. I think that's how that works. So, anyways, so you could do like different numbers like that. But in this word here, I don't know how to say it in Arabic. It means in the name of Allah, and it looks just like the Greek letters. So the question is, are these really Greek letters? Or are these what someone saw, John saw, and he wrote out the word in Arabic, and it comes out as the number 666. So that's kind of interesting. In the name of Allah. Okay, so there's other ideas that it might be a 1 instead of another letter in Greek, but that could make it 616. I got into a little bit of cartoons here about the problems that were going on between Russia and Syria and Turkey and all that, because I'm going to talk about Turkey here soon. Russia and Turkey are getting along now, but they weren't getting along so great for a while. Turkey had just shot down a Russian jet. I guess it's all forgiven and wonderful now, but I would be suspicious of all that, because I think that Islam, as it wants to conquer the world, will use different strategies and techniques to get there, and they'll be your friend for a while as long as they can gain an advantage. And they might just overpopulate your area. They don't necessarily have to cut your head off, but they reproduce a lot faster than we do, so that's another strategy they may use as they immigrate to other countries. So anyways, this is all stuff that's kind of old news now, and Egypt is having some issues with Turkey back a while back, and that's important because that's the king of the south. The king of the north was Turkey. If you go back to video 1, you'll see what I'm saying. I'm not going to get all through all this here. Alright, so now we were talking about, so I went through all this, how it can be, a sign can mean all these different things, and I'm skipping through all that. So now let's go back, oops. So the word sign off could imply that God intended for the sun, moon, and stars to be used as signs, possibly similar to the nature to all the previous examples. Now let's look at a closer look at the word seasons. So what I did is, when I was explaining the different meanings of signs, I went through a whole bunch of junk. So We don't need to get into that tonight. So anyway, so now let's look at from Genesis 1:14. The word seasons is translated as moed, and if you look at that translation, if you read this translation, tell me if you see anything in here that says spring, summer, fall, or winter, or anything like that. Let's read it. Properly an appointment, that is, a fixed time or season, specifically a festival, conventionally a year, by implication an assembly as convened for a definite purpose, technically the congregation, by extension the place of meeting, also a signal as appointed beforehand, appointed sign, time, place of, solemn, assembly, congregation, set, solemn feast, appointed, due, season, solemn, synagogue, set time, appointed. So nothing in there is really talking about seasons. It's talking about appointments, meeting times, congregations, gathering together, things like that. So the word really isn't about, when we're talking about the sun, moon, and stars, we're not really talking about in Genesis 1:14 about seasons like wintertime or spring or fall. That's not what that word really means. And so, yeah, I guess you could use it that way, but it's more like a season of time or an appointment. So that is a mistranslation that people will miss. So really, the Bible does say that we're supposed to look at the stars for appointed times, and for into the moon and the sun, and that's also how we set up the calendars. So it could also mean that. It does really mean that, I'm sure. So okay, so when we're reading this definition, we don't see signs. Okay, so let's move on. Moving on. Okay, so let's read Genesis 1:14 again, if the computer will do it. Okay. All right, so again we have signs and seasons. This is moed, mean appointed times, and this does mean signs. Okay, so question is, will these signs be obvious or subtle? Perhaps they will be subtle at times and obvious at others. I wish I could have done a video, like a real video, just talking to you. I'm so sorry, you're probably falling asleep, but try to stay awake. So anyways, okay, perhaps subtle, okay, let's read this. Perhaps subtle signs are subtle for a reason. Jesus spoke in parables to reveal knowledge to only those who were serious about learning. The casual listener would hear the parables but not understand. Now most people who are probably watching this video have already dropped out and went and found another video that's more entertaining to watch than watching me go blah, 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 blah. So you really got to be interested if you're going to dig these things up. Okay? In Matthew 13:10-17, and the disciples came to Jesus, and the disciples came and said unto him, Why speakest thou unto them in parables? He answered and said unto them, Because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. For whosoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away, even that he hath. Therefore speak I to them in parables, because they seeing see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. And in them is fulfilled the prophecy of Elijah, which say, I think that's Elijah, not Elijah, Elisha, I think that's what that means, which saith, By hearing ye shall hear, and shall not understand, and seeing ye shall see, and shall not perceive. For this people's heart is waxed gross, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes have closed, lest at any time they should see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and should understand with their heart, and should be converted, and I should heal them. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. So I think it really comes down to, are you serious about learning? Because it's going to take some work. All right, so now let's move on. I'm not going to get into pointed time. I was going to get into signs and stuff. This is kind of fun. They used hyssop. They dipped the hyssop in the blood during times of Moses to have the angel of death pass over their homes during the first Passover, so that the angel of death would not kill the firstborn. And when they painted the doors with this hyssop from the blood of the lamb, and remember, Jesus was our Passover lamb. What's interesting, what happened during the first blood moon is, if you look at Virgo, she's holding what looks like hyssop, and the blood moon was dripping off the hyssop, just like blood. So, anyways, you can get into that if you want. I'm not going to go too far into that. Alright, so these are some dates. In the 14th day of the first, I think I noticed a lot of 14s here lately. You can read that, stop the video if you want. I'm not even going to get into it. I'm just trying to move on. What do we got going there? Yeah, move on. So much to go through. One thing to consider is during the Feast of Tabernacles, well, let's move on. I'll probably come to it later. Okay, let's look at another little neat sign that might have happened to think about now. And I started learning about this stuff more seriously in around 2013. And I was sick that year, and well, not that year, but I was sick for a few days when the Pope was resigning, and the Vatican got struck by lightning twice. And then just a few days later, the Chelyabinsk meteorite comes in over Russia, and this meteorite was pretty explosively, had some pretty good power in it, and put a lot of people in the hospital, knocked some walls over, made a nice little hole in the ice. If you'd like to read a little bit of the details, you can pause it and read this. It tells you how serious it was. And then here's the Tetrad blood moons, Passover Seders, like 4 blood moons, and they have 4 Passover cups. Alright, here's something you'll like. Okay, the maximum point of the first blood moon on actually April 14th and 15th, depending on what time zone you were in, was centered south of Baja, California in the Pacific Ocean. Okay, that's where it was at its darkest point. Okay, and that's what would be directly below it. You see, with a globe, if you go perpendicular from the surface, go to a point. If I have a point here, that would be perpendicular to a surface here. So all points outside of the globe are perpendicular to a point on the planet. So when the moon was at its darkest point, it was perpendicular, looks like to about right here or so, in the Pacific Ocean. Okay, so now let's take a look at this. That aligned up, if you took a meridian line from that point and went over the North Pole with it, okay, and you would end up where the Chelyabinsk meteorite was, where it exploded. It lined up with that Chelyabinsk meteorite. You think, oh, that's kind of cool. It gets better. If you look at the trajectory of the Chelyabinsk meteorite, there's different ideas on which path it took. So I took a map, and I used this map here to determine this trajectory. You can barely see that line in there, but there it goes. And you can see the field there. And I used that trajectory, and I continued it out around the Earth, and guess where I ended up at? The final blood moon. Exactly where the final blood moon was. 6,777 miles away. 6,777 miles away. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. So basically, I have a big run-on sentence here to read to you. That'll be kind of fun. So basically, I had the first blood moon line up with the meridian over to where the meteorite was coming in, and it pointed out to where the blast button is. I didn't even get to the part, if you just deviated a little bit to go over the Throne of Satan in Berlin, that Hitler has there, it would come out 6.66 miles off trajectory down here, so that's a whole other one. But anyway, so let's just read this one. So let's consider this for a moment. The largest meteor in the last 100 years to hit planet Earth, which came from some random place in outer space, traveling at around 40,000 plus miles per hour, 12 miles per second, hit planet Earth, which is spinning at about 1,000 miles per hour and is traveling at about 66,622 miles per hour. Do you see a 666 in there? It's the number of man. 18.5 miles per second around the sun, directly in the right spot to correspond to the same meridian line of the first blood moon moon's maximum point, which was traversing the Earth at about 1,000 miles per hour, and which was the beginning of a rare tetrad blood moons, which all occurred on God's feast days, and this meteorite came into the correct spot at the correct trajectory to point directly at another correct spot, 6,777 miles away, where the final super-sized blood moon, it wasn't a normal-sized blood moon, it was a big one, blood moon was during its maximum point as it traversed around the Earth at about 1,000 miles per hour as well. Do you think this is just a coincidence? What's going on there? You've got all these things moving so fast, and you got the feast days when the blood moons were on feast days. You have this meteorite coming in. It's 6,777 miles away. The last blood moon was a super blood moon. The Earth is going, 66,000 miles an hour around the sun, and here comes this meteorite going at 40,000 miles an hour. I mean, just imagine that. You got this thing zipping along, and it's spinning, and you're just going to throw a rock at it, and it's going to land in the right spot to line up for things. No way. Especially when it's the biggest meteorite that's hit in the last 100 years. Okay? It's not just any old meteorite. Okay, so I don't know what I'm doing here. Oh, I'm showing on Google Earth the ground length was 2,016 miles. You'll see this here in a second. This is another interesting thing. If we go from the point of where the Chelyabinsk meteorite hit here in Russia, right there in that little dinky dot down there, which I'll zoom into here, that's where the hole is, where it actually went in. Now, when it came in, it blew up into lots of little pieces and gave us that big debris field, but the big rock went into the lake. Okay? And they took it out. You see some pictures there and grabbing it and getting it out. Divers went in. Okay. If you draw a line from there down into Israel, to the Dome of Ascension, I think that's what that's called. It's where it's on the Mount of Olives, and it's thought to be where Jesus rose, or that we rose to heaven, but that's thought to be the spot there. If you go there, from where that hole is to there, to that little box, okay, according to Google Earth, is 10,644,480 feet. That's exactly, with no remainders, exactly. If you divide that by 5,280, that's how many feet are in a mile. Come out to exactly the year 2016, or 2016 miles. Don't know if it means anything, but it's certainly interesting. If nothing happens in 2016, then in 2017 we can laugh about this, but even so, sometimes past events have meaning that are not realized until many years later. So it might mean something, and we may not understand what it means until later. Who knows? I don't know. There's stuff we're probably still learning about the blood moons that happened, just like I showed you, even though the blood moons already are done and gone, or have gone away. And it's, like if you measure from the blood moons to the sign that's coming up from the first blood moon, I believe April, if you count the day, not just, you see, any part of the day is counted as the whole day, from April 14th, I believe, to September 23rd, 2017, till April 14th, 2014, to September 23rd, 2017 is 1,260 days, and that's a very important number in Bible prophecy. All right. Did I get that right? Was the first blood moon? You got to double check. Bear with me. Here it is. Don't move. Okay. Yes. Okay, it says April 15th, 2014, but it's actually April 14th as well, because you have different time zones. It depends on, this is Universal Standard Time, but over here it was April 14th, and then it crossed over into the 15th, past the midnight hour, I believe. I think that's what happened. I was standing out here I'm in Nevada, and I was standing out on a hill with some friends, and we were worshiping God, looking out over the city, and looking towards the south over the city, and we could see the moon coming across. It was absolutely incredible. Just incredible. We had music going and everything right out there in the middle of the night. We were up in this, there's a church that's up on a hill, and we asked if we could go out there and just have a little worship service at night, and so we brought our cars and turned on some music and had a worship service out there and outside on this hill where the church is that overlooked the city of Reno, and we could see the moon in the south and it was just incredible. And it's very interesting because this alignment here actually lined up with something else over near Walker Lake that I was going to do. And I didn't know it at the time. I shouldn't get into the story, but I was going to do a little a little reenactment for the Feast of Tabernacles when Moses was on Mount Nebo, and he looked over at the Jordan and the Promised Land, and Walker Lake hooked up with as if it was the Dead Sea, and Walker River would have been the Jordan River, and we would have had a little setup there and looking over this area. We were going to do that for Feast of Tabernacles. And it turned out I didn't know that the campsite I set up with was going to set up there. We never did it, but this campsite that I set up for it was within half a second of that alignment. Perfectly at that alignment. And I can go on with that story a lot. It actually gets into where my house is and where I live in between Reno and Fallon and Fernley, but it's a long story. I'm not going to get into that tonight. But a lot of this stuff has been really, really, really personal and amazing to me, and I think God has been directing me to look into this stuff and discover things, and it's taken a lot out of me to do it, a lot, but it's been good. So anyway, so here we go. Oops, I already showed you that. Oh, let's zip on down. I mean, I made all these slides. They're not all done, but I had to make these things. This isn't like it just took no work. Okay, so now we were looking at, what were we looking at? We were trying to look at the signs. Okay, and let them be for signs and seasons. Okay, we kind of already did that. This is still a mess. Okay, appointed times, already did that. Here's something to consider about the signs. When the wise men came to see King Herod had to ask them. Then Herod, when he had privily called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. So the star of Bethlehem, King Herod didn't know when it happened. Now, back in those days, they didn't have television and whatnot, and people slept outside, and people would have seen the stars. And if it was a real big deal, King Herod would have known about it. So what kind of star or sign would cause the wise men to go on a long journey in the hope of finding the Messiah? So it had to be significant to them to make them do that. But if it was so convincing to the wise men, how come it wasn't obvious to King Herod? So you see your Christmas cards, and they got the big bright star up there. Do you think King Herod would have noticed that? Of course he would have. So that's not what it was. I don't think. Could it have been a comet? Well, if it was really dinky and small, and maybe King Herod wouldn't have seen it, maybe. That if it was big, I doubt it, he would have seen it. The thing about a comet that might work is that you could see comets come in, go around the sun, and come back out. As they're coming in, you could see them. As they go around the sun, you can't see them anymore because the sun's blocking your view. You can't see behind the sun, burn your eyes out. And then it comes back into view as it comes back out around the sun. So maybe the wise men saw a comet, went on their trip, and then saw it again when they got into Bethlehem as it came back around. Who knows? But it also could have been a conjunction of something. Now this isn't a conjunction, this is just me talking about my alignment, but my alignment. Yeah, that's mine. Anyway, what I'm going to talk about, I should not talk like that. That's ridiculous. Anyway, so, but it could have been a conjunction. Sometimes you have Venus and Jupiter come together and whatnot. Now, the last two conjunctions of Venus and Jupiter happened 444 days apart, so 444. Very interesting number there. Anyway, so the wise men came to the house. The shepherds came to the manger. The wise men came to the house. A lot of people don't know. We always see the wise men coming to the manger in our Christmas cards, but that's incorrect. They came to the house. Yeshua was a child at that point. He was not a baby. So you can look at all that if you want. So it's just our traditions are so messed up. I'll go through these slides so you can just kind of look at them. If you want to read them, you can pause the video if you want to read all that stuff. I haven't necessarily proofread it, so I'm not sure if it's all completely accurate. I might have was doing here. Who knows? I don't remember. Alrighty. Okay, there were 3 gifts, not 3 wise men. There could have been a lot of wise men. It was enough to cause Jerusalem problems. They were very troubled by it, and the king got audience with the king. So it wasn't just like 3 guys showing up. They were important people. Okay, I guess then I talked about how a sukkah during the Feast of Tabernacle looks a lot like a manger. Is there a possibility Yeshua was born during the Feast of Tabernacles? I think there is. And he may have been conceived around Christmas. Anyway, so manger scene, sukkahs, Israelites celebrate it. All people, all Bible-believing people actually should be celebrating under sukkahs during Feast of Tabernacles, but a lot of us don't. Anyway, so then we're grafted into Israel. So we are Israelites, even if we're just Christians in a way. But that's a whole other thing to get into. It's interesting how you will see these symbols in ancient pottery and whatnot, where they have the menorah on the fish, and the fish tail and the base of the menorah make up the Star of David. Okay, I will get into this later. This is just sort of a foreshadowing of what I'm going to talk about. There's a mosque being built in the middle of Istanbul, Turkey, and it happens to be on the alignment. And this little road down here, or this level right in here, on Google Earth I was able to get through here and get a elevation. According to Google Earth, this is 666 feet in elevation. Okay, this is for us not to know that this is okay. We're not to know the times or the seasons which the Father hath put in His own power, but ye shall receive power after the Holy Ghost has come upon you, and ye shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and unto the uttermost parts of the earth. No one knows the day or the hour. But the day or the hour, not knowing the day or the hour might be actually a hint to Yom Teruah, which is the hidden feast. I'm not going to get into that right now. I think that's too much for right now. But basically, we are to watch. That's what we're being told by God to do, is to watch and pray. So we can know some things about it. Remember, this is appointed times, probably. Well, this is in the Greek. I don't know exactly what that means in the Greek. That's a whole lot. I'm not going to get into that right now. Okay, so Damascus is becoming a ruinous heap. That's what Damascus looks like. Isaiah 17:1. The burden of Damascus, behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be a ruinous heap. Well, it's well on its way to looking like that. What did I get into here? Oh boy. Question. If we are not to know the times and seasons, then how are we going to not be taken by surprise as by a thief in the night when he returns? Probable answer, because we will recognize what is happening if we are watching. We should know what is happening when it's happening, but we may not necessarily know exactly when it is going to happen beforehand. Okay. All right. If the people had known when Yeshua had come, the Romans would not have destroyed Jerusalem. And Jesus wept over that. Okay, moving on. Okay, so on the 9th of Av, the first temple was destroyed by the Babylonians on the 9th of Av. Okay, that was in 586 BC. And on the 9th of Av in 70 AD, the Romans came and destroyed the temple. So, Av is the 11th month of the Jewish civil year. That's when you start off Rosh Hashanah during the first day of Tishri. But Rosh Hashanah is really hiding what's Yom Teruah. People are celebrating Yom Teruah as if it's the new year, but the biblical New Year actually comes from Aviv, which is another month. So depending on which calendar you're going to use, in which Jewish calendar you're going to use the biblical one, or you're going to use the civil one. Either have Av as the 5th month or the 11th month. Av is the 11th month on the Jewish civil year and the 5th month of the biblical year. So the 9th of Av is either 5-9 or 11-9. If you write this date with the date first and then the month, you get 9/11. Indeed, the 9th of Av has been like 9/11 for the Hebrews. Now, what I'm going to talk about, this sign that's coming up here. In 586 BC, we had the sign appear, but without Jupiter being born. That's what makes the one in 2017 very special. We had it also happen at 70 AD. It doesn't happen that often, guys, so it's remarkable that it happened during those times. And I'm going to get into that, what that sign is. Then I'll get into the alignment. Actually, I'm going to cut off the video at this point, and then I'm going to start up again. And I'll just tell the next people, or whoever skipped this video, and they have to go, well, we'll see what I do. Okay, I don't know yet.